This is Nate Wasson, and you're listening to the Matt Balaker podcast.
Hello, good friends and casual acquaintances. Thank you for tuning into the Matt Balaker podcast. If you want to get extra credit, please hit like, subscribe, and encourage some of your friends to do the same. Today's guest is fantastic. He's the founder of Ailia Family Office Club. He's the CIO of another family office. He launched a search firm that invests in profitable companies and equips mid-career executives to run them. He's also well-versed in the silver tsunami. Please welcome Nate Wasson to the program. How you doing, Nate?
Matt, thanks for having me. I'm doing great. Appreciate you taking the time.
Anytime, Nate. And I think you're probably my fifth or sixth guest from the great city of Chicago. And by Chicago, I'm going to be pretty generous with what, the geography is. Our listeners want to know if we're spending a couple nights in Chicago and we're looking to have food that's recommended by locals, where can you point us, Nate?
So one of my favorites is a restaurant called Avec, and more generally, the Fulton Market area. It's on the west side of the downtown area. Just an incredible lot of restaurants, a lot of shops. It's got a wonderful vibe, and it is probably where I would say I feel a lot of the pulse of the city right now. And so as you'll get some probably classic recommendations, right, for pizza or hot dogs, and I've got those as well. But if you're looking for something a little modern, a little interesting, the Hoxton Hotel has two really incredible restaurants in it. So something a little bit more modern, a little bit more vibey. You can kind of go on the west side of Chicago and get some great food and spend a night getting some craft cocktails and kind of hamming it up.
That sounds good. So people out there, it's not just deep dish pizza. You can expand your horizons when you visit Chicago. So you have a really impressive background, Nate, but you obviously didn't start out this way. What were your first jobs that you had, whether it's before college or after?
Yeah, it'd be during college. Before college, camp counselor. You can't go wrong with starting your career out shepherding little ones into the world. The second job, and that was my high school job. The second job, I did when I was in college, was summers at a construction company. So it was a design build firm called Optima Inc. They're still in business today. It's a second generation run business. Absolutely incredible. An incredible architect, David Hovey, was kind of the owner of the company. And one of the things that he did that I always loved is he took, I was digging ditches and filling them back in again. That was my job, right? Let's just be honest, what I did.
Was it a government contractor job?
Sort of felt like it, right? Like, so, he built residential real estate, but I happened to be on the grounds crew. So these irrigation pipes need, kind of 6-inch ditch, to 12-inch. And I would literally dig a ditch. I'll put those pipes down and fill the ditch back in again. And that's day in and day out. I think and a couple things. One is I took a lot of lessons from that job, right? Mm-hmm. Lesson one is the owner, David Hovey, was an incredible gentleman and scholar. And as he always took time to show us why he was designing the buildings he was designing, why he actually was laying out the grounds he was laying out. He happened to be a professor at UIC's architectural school, and what he did was he actually took that into into his daily engagement with all the employees. So you learn to appreciate not just the hard work. It was labor intensive, but we also had a chance to really experience architecture in a way that I wouldn't have had exposure to and appreciation I wouldn't have had without him. So I think of him all the time very fondly. And I think about his leadership style. Like he was, a business person. He had a degree of intensity, but he also had, he was also the consummate teacher. And that was always, and I hope I take that to some of the things that I do every day, which is always take the time to share the why we're doing things, not just having somebody execute something.
Yeah, no, I mean, and sharing the why is so important because if we're all just kind of soldiers with our heads down, it's very easy to get distracted and discouraged and like, why the hell am I doing this? So, aside from kind of sharing the why, Nate, what are some of the, I guess, leadership styles you learned from this gentleman that influenced you today?
Yeah, so one is you have to hire the right people. Good people will always make the right difference. People matter. Purpose matters, right? So if I had to say two P's, right, people and purpose, if you go in every day and you don't have a purpose, and we'll talk a little bit about HalBar and entrepreneurship through acquisition and our purpose but you have to have that. You also, when you have that purpose, the people that generally gravitate to you are folks that have similar purpose. And I talk about E squared a lot, which is energy and enthusiasm. People put that kind of energy and enthusiasm, not to a company, but they put it towards people and purpose. And that right. It's not for money. It's for something bigger than money. It's for something more meaningful than just being able to pay your rent every month.
Right. I mean, there's a reason Rick Warren's book, A Purpose-Driven Life, has sold how many tens of millions of copies and people across religions. I mean, it's like, back in the day, if you were called a company man, that's an insult. And I think it still is right now. But if you're working with people and you have a purpose that you're coming together on, it's, that's a fulfilling life. That's a fulfilling career path. But I want to learn more about your college days because I know Valpo or Valparaiso from Bryce Drew's famous shot. I think it was in 1998 in the tournament. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but were you part of that? Did you Drew, like what is Bryce Drew in Valpo and what was your Valpo experience?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. I was at Valpo during this exceptionally special time. I was involved with Valparaiso athletics. It holds a deep place in my heart. I played strong safety all 4 years at Valpo.
Wow.
It's just what Coach Fox has done with their football team and kind of what they're doing today is incredible. But you got to admit, basketball is sort of Valpo's calling card. And I happened to be I went to school at the same time that Bryce did, and we shared classes together, and we happened to be on the same campus, same time, year apart. Just an incredible experience to be at the university when you're such a small university. It's just a few thousand people, and you're making such a large contribution to the national cultures, and it just it also shines the light on kind of what a Lutheran university can do and can be in college athletics, right? It was really a great time. I think Bryce and his father Homer Drew and his brother now who's coaching at Baylor. It's just an incredible basketball legacy. And, Indiana is a place where basketball reigns supreme. I think it still in many ways does today. Not only did I go to Valparaiso University, I was born in Valparaiso. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
It's in your blood. It holds a, and you probably talk about this in your podcast. There are circles in life, and we tend to keep coming back in these circles. That was one of the most early examples for me. And just being from Northwest Indiana, I've always loved basketball, and that shot heard around the world. We were obviously just super excited to see the university get that kind of recognition, and just to have. It's just a fun time to be on campus.
I mean, it was one of the most iconic March Madness moments. Like up until then, I'd heard of Valparaiso, but me and like lots of others became fans like instantly because of that shot. It was for folks out there, go onto YouTube. It was a last second shot. I think they beat Mississippi. It was ranked a lot higher. Just an amazing, exuberant event. But Nate, aside from athletics, what are some of the big takeaways or some of the big learning lessons you had from Valparaiso?
Yeah, from Valparaiso, I think when you think about the where I started the top of the podcast was having purpose, right? And I think that really, when you go to a school like Valparaiso, and I went to a little school in Wheaton, Illinois for elementary school called St. John's Lutheran. And you start, those moments start to build upon one another in terms of what your purpose will and can be. And I think as I ended up in graduate school at Yale, that ended up continuing, right? So you go through, I probably would say, it started in that at St. John and then continued through Valparaiso. I have now been a part of a really wonderful organization called the DuPage Foundation. It was a community foundation in the Chicagoland area. And the last couple of years, I've had the good fortune of serving as the board chair for that organization. And then continuing on and having a chance to go to Yale and study under a couple of my sort of professional heroes in asset management. It really has driven me to this idea that you have to have purpose when you think about business and society in everything you do. They're not mutually exclusive. I think for a while we were in a business culture that really felt like that if you could maximize profit, you should. And the argument today is if you can maximize value to all stakeholders, you should. That is a very different phrase than maximizing shareholder value versus maximizing stakeholder value. And I really fall on the latter side, which is maximizing stakeholder value is everything we should be doing, and we should be creating a purpose around that.
And can you unpack that a little bit? Because it's a pretty new concept. I was an econ major, and candidly, the idea of doing anything other than maximizing shareholder value is like, why would you even consider it? It was a very different mindset. So for folks out there, kind of like myself, who are less familiar, can you educate us a bit?
And you got it. It's an economic concept, right? Maximizing shareholder value means that you're trying to create the most amount of return for a single dollar invested, and that's usually how it's thought of. Maximizing shareholder value considers other constituencies that don't necessarily equate to maximizing the dollar. And I'll give you an example. If you're a company that is,
sorry, I think you're talking about stakeholder value, right?
Yes, stakeholder. Yes, you got it. Sorry, yes, stakeholder value. When you're thinking about stakeholder value, you're really thinking about thinking about an entire system of actors and players, and how do you create the best outcome? Consider we're all part of a joint ecosystem or society. And I really love that concept because it really allows you to, if you have to pollute to create profit, and that pollution causes all of us in 30 years to have to spend more money to rectify that situation when you actually didn't grow stakeholder value, right?
Right.
Yeah, and ultimately you might have grown short-term profits, but somebody ultimately is going to have to fix that problem.
Yeah, I mean, in a practical sense, Nate, it's an accounting issue. If you're not accounting for the pollution you're creating downstream, you're not not adding enough cost to your revenue, and that makes a lot of sense because, like many things, it's simple when it comes to a textbook, but when you're dealing with people who have all sorts of motivations and interests, it's implementing that is maybe impossible, if not incredibly difficult. So I like, you went to a relatively small school at Valpo, Yale, small school, big name, but you mentioned you had heroes in asset management. As such a young man, my heroes would have probably been like, Shaq, Michael Jordan, and I'll throw in Larry Bird just, because you're an Indiana boy. But how did you get such an interest in asset management and this kind of work at such a young age?
Well, so I won't say it was such a young age, right? I had been a professional for over 10 years before I went back to do my MBA. And I really only went back to do my MBA because there was a fellow there that named David Swenson. He ran Yale's endowment, and I was really attracted to the work he was doing. And he is sort of the father, maybe even grandfather of this idea that endowments in general and investors in general should think more holistically about investing and trying to match up their time horizon. and a little bit better. If you don't need money today, why would you invest for returns for today? Why wouldn't you invest for returns, larger returns, when you actually might need the money? And that idea of matching the cash flows that you may need with your investment policy, and then what assets you can invest in, was really appealing to me. The work he did was absolutely incredible. Almost a 30-year career, and I was fortunate enough to be one of the last groups of students that he had a chance to talk to and mentor. And it's exciting to get that opportunity with one of your professional heroes to really learn from, understand how they think. And he, believe it or not, it's a very pragmatic approach to investing, and it's very thoughtful, but also he really increased the amount of non-publicly traded assets that are generally held in university endowments. And it was really exciting for somebody who was constructing portfolios on a regular basis to kind of understand and see how he was doing that.
I like it. So you learned about constructing homes, then years later constructing portfolios, but it's kind of same general concepts, Nate. So after grad school, what was your career path?
Yeah, so I'll start a little bit between kind of
Sure.
Valpo and Yale as I kind of worked my way through JPMorgan's business banking and commercial banking, and had an opportunity to work on some meaningful kind of consulting roles there. I ended up working at Bank of Montreal and their portfolio construction, investment management, brokerage area, then in their private bank, and then moved to with a really amazing fellow, Zach Lazar, who is managing a team at Capital Group. I had known Zach for a number of years, worked him at Bank of Montreal, and had a chance to work with him again at Capital Group. And Capital Group is a $3 trillion asset manager. So when you're at a firm like that, you learn so much, you soak in so much. And then during the time I was at Capital Group, I finished my MBA and then went on to Silicon Valley Bank. And so that's a name that's been in the news a little bit. Sometimes it's fortune. You're just fortunate, right? You're lucky. The term "better to be lucky than good." I was there. I was running a cross-functional think tank for building products and strategies for the investment groups at the firm, and I was especially focused on environmental, social, and governance, impact investing, private equity, different unique strategies. One of the strategies I was working on was and had been contemplating was the idea of entrepreneurship through acquisition.
Okay.
And it's and that's there's a term out there called search funds, which is where an entrepreneur who it gathers capital from a small group of investors to search for a company to buy and then ultimately operate. The challenge is with for searchers and others is that group in general is it's really hard to invest in that asset class, and so it's not a very easy asset class to invest in. So I worked really hard with a group out of Switzerland called Novastone Capital Advisor to bring their entrepreneurship through acquisition program to the U.S. And then partner with them on growing that program. And in the process of advising that group, I decided to leave Silicon Valley Bank and start my own firm with this idea that we were going to be able to finally do a institutionally partnered entrepreneurship through acquisition program, which we've done. It's really neat. I can't believe we're sitting here almost a year and a half later, and we've grown to the largest entrepreneurship through acquisition program globally. We have now completed over 13 deals through syndication, and now we're in the process of launching an institutional fund to invest in entrepreneurship. It's just an incredible journey this past year and a half, and we're finally at the moment where we're able to help those folks who are mid-career professionals preparing for what we've entered as the silver tsunami right now of baby boomers who have these amazing operating businesses who are leaving. We've now put ourselves in a position to help them retire comfortably and to take these incredible mid-career professionals who had this great entrepreneurial spirit. We built a program to help them find a company to operate, deploy capital into that operating business, and then we stay with them to create value as that company grows. And just we're really proud of that work and where we've come in such a short period of time.
You should be. I mean, it's super creative. I mean, it's one thing to invest in a company, or it's another thing to find an executive to run it. But when you're doing both, I mean, that's a pretty heroic task. But you're doing it at the right time. I mean, look at me saying this after you've already done it. But we've had Ron Diamond on the program a couple times, and for folks out there, he's very big in the family office space, and he talks about like the largest transfer of wealth in, I think, centuries. And what that is like the baby boomers. I think folks born, I'm ballparking, Nate. Like I think it's like 1940 to maybe 1960, roughly speaking. Many of them are retiring or have retired, but it's such a large cohort. And like you're saying, they created these businesses, and it's exciting. But when there's this transfer, there's going to be a lot of disruption. So, what are some of the opportunities you're seeing through this disruption?
You really nailed it. The transfer of wealth is largely built on there's operating businesses that are generally have become these great local businesses, kind of important parts of the community. And what we hopefully do is we actually continue to operate those businesses in those communities. Generally, what would happen is as the baby boomer is retiring, they would either potentially sell to an employee if they had a capable employee, or if they had a capable kind of family member or somebody they knew to run it. Oftentimes that's not the case. And so if they don't have one of those two succession strategies, they end up just selling assets, closing shop. And we're saying maybe there's another way to keep the lights on and keep everybody employed, which is this idea of turning it over to the next generation and a very competent executive who has domain expertise in their space and has the energy and enthusiasm and really that passion to build that business and be a good steward of that business and that legacy that the baby boomer executive or operator had.
I love that because I'm in California, and Silicon Valley gets a lot of press, and you hear stories about like the 24-year-old billionaire, or someone who created a cool algorithm that is now leading a social media company, or I'm kind of being stereotypical, but there's so many opportunities for well-established businesses. And like just taking a step back, Nate, like if you're going to invest in something, all things equal, wouldn't you rather a business that's been around for 30 years, where you has stable, predictable cash flows, run by people that have been doing it for decades? Like how can people who aren't baby boomers, maybe they're millennials or Gen Yers or Gen Xers, how can they participate in the silver tsunami?
Yeah, so the first thing is you have to decide, how do you want to search? Do you have the ability to search and find a company like this? We found there were many millennials or Gen Xers that didn't have the skills, kind of know which rocks to look under, how to do a search that really, really targeted their skills. The other part is there are a lot of resources for the younger entrepreneur who wants to do a startup. There's incubators and venture firms, but there's an incredible amount of talent that's sitting in these well-established kind of Fortune 500 companies, or who have run businesses and already exit businesses before, that could bring an incredible amount of talent and energy to a baby boomer business, and that is really what we've helped create. We've created a partnered entrepreneurship through acquisition program that helps people understand, here's how I don't have to go and raise capital for my friends and family to go spend 2 years looking for a company. I have, we provide the capital for them to go out and find, almost like a salary, right? Very similar to a salary. You'll leave your day job, and your full-time job is to find a company that is going to be a great fit for your skill set. Then when you find that company, we help aggregate the equity capital and help understand how much debt to place on the company and help do the financial modeling so all parties can benefit at the transaction moment. But I think what's most importantly and most interesting is you could stop the program right there, but we continue the program in terms of value add resources. HalBar Partners is built with individuals on my team who have run businesses, who have built tech stacks, who have developed code, who have gone out and led groups of 300 or 400 people, who've been on the shop floor. We go out and we take those resources and help you grow your business over the next 5 to 7 years, and then get you ready for that next stage of the company's growth.
Well, this is very consistent with what you mentioned earlier in terms of aligning stakeholders. It's like this big search party where you find a company and grow it, and you all get to celebrate in the party. I think that's really cool, and I'm sure it's just that easy, right? Like it always goes exactly as planned. Or
it doesn't. You better write that in pencil, erase it, and write it again, right? Like it is not that easy. And we you know, my good friend Christian Malik, who runs the NSA Entrepreneurship through Acquisition program, he will tell you they have rewritten that game plan 10 times, and I'm really happy you wrote it in pencil. We, you know, to get to where we are today with HalBar in just 18 months, we started our initial strategy much more complex than the strategy we actually ended up going, the investment strategy we went to market with. We had hedges and all sorts of other really interesting things in the fund. And what we realized is when we went to market, what folks were really after was this passion alpha, the passion that the new entrepreneur brings to the business. When you grow, we're going to help people grow their revenues and grow their pre-tax earnings. That's, you know, and we do that because we're going to be really good about leveraging technology. We're going to be really good about growing the business development and the processes and process improvement and efficiency. We do all of that. Mm-hmm. But what I think is what really happens is there is when you grow from a smaller middle market company to a true middle market company, right about the $5 to $7 million EBITDA range, which is your pre-tax earnings, mm-hmm. is right about the point where you'll actually your valuation for your company actually increases. And we're really helping a lot of these entrepreneurs understand how to take these smaller businesses and grow them. And just by growing them into more efficient and capturing some of these economies of scale, they'll increase the valuation of the company and increase stakeholder value all the way around.
Wow. So what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned throughout this process?
So a couple things. I stick true to my people thing. We interview almost 3,000 people a year for the NCAA ETA program, and we take just 3 to 4 people a quarter, right? So it is. You have to, you really have to have an entrepreneurial spirit. You really have to believe that you have to, that independence that comes with an entrepreneur, you have to have that as part of the program. And we started to realize that it's the importance of somebody having domain expertise. HalBar invests in a lot of industries and a lot of sectors. But our entrepreneurs need to be very sector specific, very focused on what is the value that they can bring, what's their expertise that they can bring to an operating business. And we really want them to stay focused on the industry that they have that extra value add, that extra something. The other part I would say we've learned a lot along the way is that when you do, we really want the previous outgoing owner to really stay involved in some way, shape, mm-hmm. or form. That transition is absolutely essential, and the better you make that transition, the quicker you're able to increase the value of the organization.
Yeah, it's sort of like knowledge capital. Like it, and what are some? Because I've seen this work out, and I've seen it not work out. When there's an owner or founder, and then that person might leave, and a lot of the knowledge goes, with him. Maybe it's an advisory role, or what systems have you seen, Nate, that work well to kind of keep that knowledge in house?
Well, and let me share with you so you're keeping the knowledge in house. But what just happened? A brand new leader with lots of new ideas came in. So you have two competing kind of ends of the barbell here. You have one end, you see the owner with all this experience, and you want to tap in and you want to create a smooth transition. On the other end, you have somebody who's operated business for sometimes as many as 30 years and has a way of doing it. And there may be ways that we could create efficiency in why they sold in the first place, but they want to keep enough control. So what we have found is really making sure there is defined period of time for that transition, that we do transition the day in, day out responsibilities very quickly to the new leader, and that the way we kind of help the previous owner who's leaving the business, we help them understand to maximize value for both their employees and for themselves. It's really important that we kind of shepherd through kind of a period of time, anywhere from 6 months, 18 months, even 2 years. But when we go through that period, we really try to gate that thoughtfully so that everybody knows there's a effective knowledge transfer, but we're allowed to implement the new strategies that we all thought in terms of a business plan were going to be helpful to grow the business, right? So there's that balance. There's a tension there between that transition, and we try to really help. The key is good communication. We really try to help the sellers of the business really understand that that's the idea. We are going to grow. We are going to try to, and usually the best scenarios that we come across are when that owner feels that and they know that that's exactly what they want to do to help their employees, to help their business grow, and to kind of keep their legacy.
Yeah, and as part of keeping that legacy, do you favor when the founding owner maintains equity, or do the owners just want to cash out 100%, or is there like a magic number?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a magic number, but we structure our investments in a way where the owner has some sort of equity, some sort of earnout, some sort of attachment to the company. And I talk about this a lot. If we can align interests between all the parties, the employees, the leadership, and the previous owner, that is what I'm shooting for when I'm structuring a investment or structuring a sales agreement. I'm really trying to do my very best to align as much of the interest as possible.
Right. No, smart plan. What's something you've done career-wise that you're most proud of?
So I most proud of for sure is, taking a chance and starting HalBar, right? I mean that, I put a meaningful amount of my own personal wealth and capital to launch HalBar. I had a couple incredible relationships with a couple families that were early investors, and I'm really proud of what we've done in this period of time. I'm also proud that I've been in a number of leadership roles throughout my career, and I think I'm really proud of having that chance to mentor and develop individuals along the way. When you see somebody grow professionally, I think it's just as rewarding as seeing yourself take that next step. Personal growth is wicked hard. It is incredibly hard to do. It's sometimes very painful to go through these personal growth moments, but to either help somebody through theirs or take that chance on yourself and grow personally. I think those are the things that I end up becoming most excited and most interested in doing as I get older and older. I want to take those moments to grow personally, and I want to take as many of the opportunities as I can to help somebody else do the same.
So you're like the new Coach Drew, just with a different team.
I mean, listen, Hober's my hero. Like I can say that out loud for sure.
Well, good hero to have. And what are you optimistic about, Nate?
So I'm optimistic that when I think about the tailwinds that we have in the lower middle market business, and I'm optimistic about our Gen X, Ys, and Zs, right? I'm optimistic. I hear, I don't see you see a lot of press on the way the different generations act in the workforce, and the challenges that different generations between baby boomers all the ways to the Gen Zs on how they interact. I don't see a lot of difficulty there. I see incredible people who care a ton, and I see people who care about purpose and care about growth and care about developing their own. We can all go about, business is always going to evolve, and you're always going to have different ways of working and all that, but that doesn't mean the outcomes can't be incredible. And I see, I'm very excited about the next group of both entrepreneurs coming, especially in the Gen X and Y group, but I'm really excited about the Zs as well. I see them coming through and the contributions they're going to make to these growing enterprises.
Nice. Well, I need to have you back because there's so many more questions I have, but we'll have to save that for a future episode. Where can people out there learn more about you, what you're up to, what you're all about?
Yeah, the www.halbar.io is our website. Please take a look around, and you can get in touch through there. Always reach out through LinkedIn. I'm pretty responsive in that regard as well. So either way is great, and I'd love to just hear about your personal journey, or talk about the work we're doing and how we're investing in entrepreneurship through HalBar.
Well, do that, people. It's well worth your time. Well, Nate Wasson, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Matt, thanks for having me. Really enjoyed being on.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Matt Balaker podcast. To learn more, please check out mattbalaker.com and encourage your friends to like, subscribe, and share. Really appreciate it.